All right, everyone. I think I just talked about Ebola yesterday or the day before. Now we've got more Ebola news actually right now, which is that another worker there was killed. Not a foreign worker, but one of their local sort of trainees. They've been training small groups of people, especially in the smaller outlands areas that they can't effectively do anything in, on how to sort of respond when there's an Ebola case, how to quarantine, the basics of sanitation and shit. Coordination and communication with larger centers so that you can get like serums, so you can get vaccines to an area that might be afflicted. It's not working too well though because a mob attacked the Ebola center and started looting it. Now, I'm not 100% sure whether it's been confirmed whether there were Ebola patients there at the time, but if there's ever been an Ebola case in this particular clinic, there could be some contamination to worry about. Yeah, probably a bunch more people just gave themselves Ebola. Again, because of their fucking civil war over there. I'm not sure exactly why the world community thinks it's a good idea to stand by, looking at the powder keg, looking at the fuse already lit, and not even try to stomp it out. It's like they just don't give a fuck. It's actually very mysterious to me at this point. Why didn't you learn from the West African Ebola epidemic a few years ago when something like 20,000 people may ultimately have died? Tens of thousands of others infected. Some of these people have lingering symptoms. It's like the bubonic plague or something. They're riddled with disease for the rest of their lives too. It'd be a disaster if it escapes containment. And at this point, it looks like it probably will. It looks like they're going to sit by, they're shipping in serum and stuff that shows some degree of success, okay? Like 10, 20% reduction in the death rate. That's good. That means there's human beings left over, after this all blows over, even if it goes total pandemic mode. But, how much serum do you think you can make? And as far as the vaccine, it's still in its experimental testing stage. They've mass deployed it, and they say that it shows some degree of effectiveness. That's not really going to matter. You have a civil war going on. You have cases, I'm sure, plenty of them. You probably have twice as many cases as you're seeing calculated. They're saying 1,200 dead. I can't remember how many infected. Okay, double that. That's probably what you're actually dealing with. But if you look at the growth rate of new cases, being as high as it already is in the calculated sense, I'm sure it is far higher. And it's a ticking time bomb too, because there have been several clinic attacks within the span of time, fairly recently, that would mean that those people might have flu-like symptoms, but they probably don't have Ebola symptoms, and they're walking around fucking Butembo of all places. A city with as many fucking people in it as Boston now is infected with Ebola. This never happened in the West African epidemic. It didn't hit any of these major urban centers. It never took hold in Freetown or something like that. No, it stayed in the smaller outlying regions. It was mostly a village epidemic. This one has already taken hold in several urban areas. Butembo, and then I can't remember the other one that's near Butembo actually is even bigger, has an international airport. There have been cases there. Lord help them if it takes hold. How are they going to stop it from going to another country? Somebody doesn't even have symptoms, they've got Ebola, they get on a plane, they go to Cairo, and all of a sudden, on a crowded street, there's 10,000 fucking people in the marketplace and they start sneezing. Nobody expects anything. Nobody suspects anything, so they're not wiping down doorknobs and covering their faces or anything like that. The person who's sick might not even know they're sick. That's the worst of all possible scenarios. Maybe it escapes the African continent, we have homegrown native cases. What if it hits China? You got to understand, Africa increasingly is tied to East Asia, especially China, for trade purposes and development purposes. Chinese engineer working in Africa happens to be get Ebola. Goes back to Beijing, a city of how many millions of people? How high a population density does it have? Starts sneezing in the market stall. He goes to his second job is as a chef. He's helping prepare the family meal or something of 20 fucking people. They all go out. Now some of them have Ebola. They go out. One of them sells shoes. Another one, yeah, imagine, works in a hospital where people are already immunocompromised because they're already sick or injured or something. Oh my goodness, can you imagine? Thankfully in China, there's no such thing as human rights, so I guess they can just cordon off the hospital and burn it to the ground or something. Which is probably what the Communist Party there would do, by the way, if that happened. And save a lot of lives by killing a bunch of people, but here we don't do that. What if there's a case in New York City? Well, I mean, it could go anywhere. This is a ticking time bomb. You have people attacking the clinics. Now, think about the mentality of a group of people that is irate enough or dumb enough or both to go into a clinic that might be infected with a disease that is essentially incurable. It kills half the people who get it. In the most gruesome possible fucking way, by the way. I mean, bleeding out of every orifice, shitting blood, pissing blood, vomiting blood, sweating blood, and sometimes fucking blood dripping from their gums and eyes. Think about it. These people think that it's wise to attack such a clinic and attack the people trying to save their lives if Ebola does come to their neck of the woods. You've got to be fucking crazy. And the outside world, what did they say a month ago? They said something about they think that they should stop guarding the aid workers with soldiers because it intimidates people. It looks bad. It makes people nervous, so maybe they don't go to the clinic. You are nuts. If I'm a foreign aid worker, let's say that I'm a doctor in the U.S. I'm like, well, maybe I'll volunteer. I'm going to go overseas and save some orphans or something. Oh, well, there's an Ebola epidemic. That'd be some high-level fucking training. You probably get some street cred for that. I'm going to go over and wear a suit 24/7 that's barely gets washed. In jungle fucking 90-degree heat and 100% humidity, I'm going to put this rubber suit on and go and dabble with a disease that has a 50-50 chance of killing me if I get it. That sounds like my idea of a month-long African vacation. Okay, so I'm a crazy doctor, and I'm willing to do that because I believe, I'm probably young and I believe that doctors should be selfless still and haven't become bitter by watching so many patients die. And then they don't even want to guard me while I'm there, like have a couple dudes there to make sure that hopefully I don't get shot in the head. Or that people come in and loot. What if they rip my suit in the process of that? What if they beat me over the head and break the suit open? There's Ebola fucking everywhere and I get infected. Yeah, no thanks. I think that I'll go and volunteer in Cambodia instead. Go with Rand Paul to some remote country and do free eye surgeries or something. At that point, the number of people volunteering for this is going to decline over time if it gets worse and worse. That's the other problem, is manpower. The local manpower. When those volunteers hear that one of their fellow volunteers was killed during an Ebola clinic looting, the smart ones will leave. They won't volunteer anymore. They'll say, no, it's too dangerous. I don't want any fucking thing to do with your fucking Ebola clinic. Get the fuck out of our country and let us deal with it for all it's worth. That's basically what's going to happen. Eventually, people will have to withdraw. They already withdrew their doctors from several locations because of ongoing attacks and violence there. I mean, how are you going to stop the Ebola? Nobody's giving me an idea of how they're going to stop it. They deploy 100,000 or so vaccines in affected areas. That's fine. It doesn't seem to have stopped the growth rate of the disease. Let's hope that there's a delayed effect and it tamps it down and allows you to get control of the situation. Oh, that's right. There's still a civil war to worry about. Nobody even talks about it half the time anymore. Barely anybody knows that there's an epidemic of an extremely deadly, mutation-prone disease that at any given time could go fully airborne and wipe out half the world's population simmering there in Central Africa. Most people don't even know it's happening. Mystifying to me. That's about all. Peace out.